The transport ship descended through the purple clouds of Kepler Prime, its hull gleaming silver against the alien sky. Ambassador Kate Morrison pressed her face to the small window and watched the massive city below grow larger. Towers of crystal and metal stretched toward the heavens, connected by bridges that sparkled like diamonds. This was the heart of galactic civilization, and today humanity would finally join it. "First time seeing the capital?" asked Colonel Jake Bennett from the seat beside her. His military uniform was crisp and clean, every metal polished to perfection. Kate nodded. "It's beautiful. Hard to believe they built all this thousands of years ago." Dr. Lisa White looked up from her tablet where she had been reviewing alien biology reports. "The Zephyrians alone have been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. Makes our 200 years seem like yesterday." The ship touched down on the landing platform with barely a vibration. Through the walls, Kate could hear the hum of alien machinery and the distant sounds of a busy spaceport. She took a deep breath and straightened her diplomatic robes. Today would change everything for humanity. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Morrison stepped out first, followed by her small team. The gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, and the air had a sweet smell that reminded her of flowers. Waiting for them stood three figures that made her heart race. The tallest was clearly Zephyrian. High Chancellor Vextar stood nearly 8 feet tall, his blue skin covered in intricate silver patterns that marked his high rank. His 4 arms moved with fluid grace as he gestured toward them. Behind him stood Supreme, Magistrate Colthun of the Altarians, a being that looked almost human except for the golden eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. The third was smaller, a centaurian whose multiple tentacles swayed gently in the breeze. "Welcome, humans," Vextar said in perfect English. His voice was deep and musical. "I am High Chancellor Vextar. We have been expecting you." Kate stepped forward and bowed slightly, the way her diplomatic training had taught her. "Thank you for this opportunity, High Chancellor. I am Ambassador Kate Morrison, representing Earth and all human colonies." "Yes, we know who you are." Colthun's voice was cold. "Come, the council waits." They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were covered in murals showing the history of the galaxy, great battles between different species, and the formation of the Galactic Council. Kate noticed that humans appeared nowhere in these ancient artworks. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of seats rose in circles around a central platform, each occupied by a representative from a different species. Kate had studied them all, but seeing them in person was overwhelming. There were beings made of living crystal, others that looked like walking trees, and creatures that seemed to be made of pure energy. "The humans will stand there." Vextar pointed to a small platform in the center of the room. It was lower than all the other seats, forcing them to look up at everyone else. Kate felt Colonel Bennett tense beside her, but she kept her expression calm. They took their positions on the platform, while hundreds of alien eyes watched them. The chamber fell silent. "Humans of Earth," Vextar began, his voice echoing through the vast space. "You have requested membership in our ancient council. We have reviewed your species and your capabilities." Supreme Magistrate Colthun stood up in his seat high above them. "Your military showed some promise in your recent conflicts with the Koryak pirates. Your technology, while primitive, has certain interesting aspects." Kate felt a small flame of hope. Maybe this would go better than she had feared. "However," Vextar continued, and that hope died quickly, "your species has many problems that must be corrected before you can join civilized society." A document appeared on the screen behind Kate, written in multiple languages including English. As she read it, her blood grew cold. First, Colthun read from the document, "All human military forces must be disbanded. Your weapons are too dangerous, and your soldiers too aggressive." Colonel Bennett's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Second, you must surrender your advanced computing technology. Your artificial intelligence research violates our laws about thinking machines. Dr. White gasped softly. Humanity's AI research was their greatest achievement. Third, Your species will undergo genetic modification to reduce your aggressive tendencies. Our scientists have identified the genes responsible for your violent nature. Kate found her voice. High Chancellor, these terms are not what we discussed. We were told this was a negotiation about partnership. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not kind laughter, but the sound of beings who found something genuinely amusing. Partnership? Vextar's forearms spread wide. Dear child, you have been spacefaring for 2 centuries. Some of us have been traveling between stars since before your species learned to make fire. More laughter filled the air. Kate's face burned with embarrassment, but she pressed on. We may be young, but we have much to offer. Our medical technology has eliminated diseases that still plague other species. Our engineering allowed us to build faster ships than anyone thought possible. Tricks and accidents, dismissed a voice from the upper tiers. Any species can get lucky once or twice. Supreme Magistrate Colthune leaned forward in his golden seat. You should be grateful we are offering you anything at all. Most species your age are still fighting with clubs and stones. We could simply ignore you, added Vexistar. Let you struggle alone in your little corner of space. But we are merciful. We offer you protection and guidance. Kate looked around the chamber at hundreds of faces showing everything from amusement to outright contempt. Not one showed respect or even basic courtesy. And if we refuse these terms? She asked quietly. The laughter stopped. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of alien machinery. Then you remain alone, Vextar said simply. No trade agreements, no technology sharing, no protection from threats you cannot handle. Your choice is simple, Colthune added. Accept our generous offer and become productive members of Galactic, society under our guidance. Or remain savage children playing with dangerous toys. Kate felt Colonel Bennett's hand touch her arm gently. She looked at Dr. White, who was staring at the floor with tears in her eyes. Around them, hundreds of aliens waited for their answer with expressions that ranged from bored to amused. Ambassador Kate Morrison straightened her shoulders and looked directly at High Chancellor Vextar. When she spoke, her voice was clear and calm. We need time to consider your offer. Of course, Vextar waved one hand dismissively. Take all the time you need. We have been patient with your species this long. For 3 days, the negotiations continued. Each day brought new demands and fresh humiliations. The terms grew worse instead of better. By the 3rd day, it was clear that the Council saw humans as nothing more than potentially useful servants. On the morning of the 4th day, Ambassador Kate Morrison stood once again on the platform in the center of the Great Chamber. The hundreds of aliens looked down at her with expressions of mild interest, already certain of her answer. High Chancellor Vextar, Supreme Magistrate Colthune, honored members of the Galactic Council. She began formally. The chamber fell silent. Humanity withdraws from these talks. We will remember this day. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the exit. Colonel Bennett and Dr. White followed her. Behind them, the chamber erupted in surprised voices and what sounded like more laughter. They did not look back. Captain Ryan Torres stared at the empty space where New Geneva Station should have been busy with traffic. His merchant ship drifted slowly toward the human trading post, but something was wrong. The docking lights were dark. No ships moved in or out of the massive station that had once been the busiest hub in this sector. Try hailing them again, he told his communications officer. Still nothing, Captain, came the reply. The station is there, but nobody is answering. Ryan had been trading with humans for 5 years. They were always prompt, always professional, always ready to do business. This silence was not like them at all. Captain, his Zephyrian engineer, Zixtal called from the engine room. I'm picking up some kind of automated signal. Put it through. A calm human voice filled the bridge. Attention all non-human vessels. New Geneva Station is currently closed to outside traffic. Please adjust your course and seek alternate destinations. This message will repeat. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Closed? Since when do humans close their trading posts? He had cargo holds full of rare metals that the humans had ordered months ago. The contracts were already signed and paid for. Now they were telling him to go away. Set course for the human colony on New Texas, he ordered. Maybe they can tell us what's going on. 2 days later, Ryan's ship approached the agricultural world where humans grew food for half the sector. Again, there was no traffic. The orbital platforms that usually swarmed with cargo ships stood empty. This time, when they got close enough, automated defense systems came online. Not weapons, but the same kind of polite barriers that governments use to keep ships away from restricted areas. "Attention merchant vessel," came another recorded message. "New Texas system is currently restricted to human traffic only. Please adjust your course to avoid our space. Safe travels." "They're not even talking to us," Zixtal said, his tentacles twitching with nervousness. What did we do wrong? Ryan had been wondering the same thing. The humans had always been friendly, even when other species looked down on them. They traded fairly, kept their promises, and never caused trouble. Now they were acting like the rest of the galaxy didn't exist. "Captain," his scanner operator called out, "I'm detecting human ships leaving the system, but they're not responding to any signals." Ryan watched on his screen as 3 human cargo ships jumped to faster-than-light speed. They moved like they were in a hurry to get somewhere, but they ignored all attempts at communication. "Something big is happening," Ryan said quietly. "And we're not invited." On Earth, President Helen Carter sat in the secure meeting room deep beneath the Capitol. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space. General Alex Stone spread out reports from every human colony and station. "The recall is complete," he announced. "Every human ship, every station, every colony has been notified. We are officially withdrawing from all contact with galactic civilization." "What about the traders who depend on us?" asked Secretary of Commerce Maria Santos. "People like Captain Torres have been doing business with us for years." "They'll find other suppliers," President Carter said firmly. "We can't worry about alien traders right now. Our species needs to focus on ourselves." Dr. Paul Gray, the head of Earth's Science Council, leaned forward. "The research projects are all green-lighted. Every human scientist is working on the new technologies. We should have results within 2 years." "And the defenses?" General Stone asked. "Already in place," replied Sandra Hill, the chief engineer. "Every human system now has automated barriers. Nothing gets in or out without our permission." President Carter stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the city. 6 months ago, they treated us like children. They wanted to change our DNA, take our weapons, and make us their servants. She turned back to face the room. Now they'll learn what happens when you push humanity too far. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council homeworld, High Chancellor Vextar was receiving very different reports. His aide, a nervous young Zephyrian named Kextal, stood before his desk with a datapad full of bad news. "The humans have gone completely silent," Kextal reported. "No communication, no trade, no diplomatic contact. It's like they've vanished." Vextar waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "They're having a tantrum. Children do this when they don't get their way." "But Chancellor, the economic effects are already being felt. The trade routes through human space carried 30% of all commerce between the rim worlds and the core systems. Then we'll find new routes," Vextar said. "The galaxy managed fine before humans learned to build spaceships." Supreme Magistrate Kolthun entered the office without being announced. His golden eyes were troubled. "We need to talk about the human situation." "What situation?" Vextar asked. "They rejected our generous offer and went home to sulk. End of story." "It's not that simple," Kolthun said. "My intelligence services are reporting strange things. Human space is completely sealed off. Not just to us, but to everyone. Even their allies can't get through. So they're being dramatic. They'll come back when they get hungry enough." Kolthun shook his head. "You don't understand. We've tried sending probe ships to the edge of their territory. The ships come back, but the crews report impossible things. Energy readings that make no sense. Technology that shouldn't exist." For the first time, Vexitar looked concerned. "What kind of technology?" We don't know. That's the problem. 2 years passed. The galactic economy began to show serious strain. Ships that used to take the fast routes through human space now had to travel for weeks longer to reach their destinations. Fuel costs went up. Shipping prices increased. Small trading companies went out of business. Captain Ryan Torres was one of the lucky ones. He had found new routes and new suppliers, but his ship was aging, and without access to human repair facilities, maintenance was becoming expensive. Remember when we could get ship parts from New Geneva for half the price? Sixtal asked as they worked on a broken engine component. Those days are gone, Ryan replied. The humans made it clear they don't want anything to do with us. But why? Sixtal's tentacles drooped sadly. We were friends. We never did anything to hurt them. Ryan had been asking himself the same question for 2 years. Maybe it wasn't about us. Maybe it was about them. On the scientific station orbiting Saturn, Dr. Lisa White worked 18-hour days in her laboratory. The same woman who had stood in shame before the Galactic Council now led humanity's most important research project. The quantum field generators are working beyond our expectations, she reported to the Science Council. We're getting energy readings that are 10 times higher than our models predicted. Dr. Paul Gray studied the data on his screen. This is incredible. If we can scale this up, we can, Dr. White interrupted. The prototypes are already in production. General Stone's people are building the first test ships. How long until we're ready? Asked Sandra Hill. Dr. White smiled for the first time in months. 6 more months, maybe less. Meanwhile, strange reports were reaching the Galactic Council from across the galaxy. Ships that ventured too close to human space reported equipment failures, sensors that detected impossible energy signatures, navigation systems that stopped working for no reason. A Centaurian exploration vessel sent to investigate the human colony of New Mars returned with a terrifying report. They had detected massive construction projects on the planet's surface, but their instruments couldn't identify what was being built. The energy readings were unlike anything in their databases. It's like they're building something that doesn't follow the laws of physics, the ship's captain reported. High Chancellor Vextar was no longer dismissive. The human silence had lasted 2 years, and the effects were being felt across the galaxy. Some council members were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about the wisdom of alienating humanity. Maybe we should try to contact them, suggested a junior council member during a closed session. Contact them? Vexitar's voice was sharp. They walked away from us, remember? If they want back into galactic society, they know where to find us. But privately, Vexitar was beginning to worry. The humans had been quiet for too long. In his experience, when someone stopped talking, it usually meant they were planning something. The question was, what could a species with only 200 years of space travel possibly be planning that would worry civilizations thousands of years old? He was about to find out. The Merchants Guild Hall on Centauri Prime buzzed with angry voices. Guildmaster Nick Savell floated in his tank at the center of the great chamber, his tentacles dark with frustration. Around him sat representatives from every major trading organization in the galaxy. 2 years, Nick Savell announced, his voice carrying through the water that filled his speaking chamber. 2 years since the humans went silent, and our profits are down 40%. A Zephyrian trader named Veltar stood up from his seat. The shipping routes through human space were the fastest way to move goods between the rim and the core worlds. Now we have to go around, and it takes twice as long. My fuel costs have tripled, complained a Koryak merchant. The alternate routes go through systems with expensive refueling stations. Nick Savell's tentacles swirled in the water. But that's not the worst part. We're starting to see technology failures across the galaxy. Equipment that the humans helped design is breaking down, and nobody knows how to fix it. A holographic display showed a graph with a steadily declining line. Medical devices, computer systems, energy generators, all of them used human innovations that we took for granted. The humans shared their knowledge freely, said an elderly Altarian trader. We never realized how much we depended on their contributions. In the back of the room, a young Altarian named Yulvan listened with growing concern. Unlike his elders, he had actually liked working with humans. They were creative, honest, and surprisingly clever for such a young species. The Council's treatment of them had always bothered him. What if we tried to contact them? Yulvan suggested, standing up despite his junior status. The room fell silent. Nixavel's tentacles stopped moving. Contact them how? Veltar asked. They won't answer any communications. Their space is sealed tighter than a military zone. Then we go there in person, Yulvan said. Send a small diplomatic mission. Show them we want to make things right. Make things right? Nixvel's voice was sharp. Young Altarian, the Galactic Council made their decision. The humans rejected our offer and chose isolation. But what if the Council was wrong? The question hung in the air like a dangerous thing. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but many in the room were thinking the same thing. On Earth, Commander Lisa Park walked through the underground facility that housed the Terran Intelligence Service. Her agents had been working around the clock to monitor galactic communications, and the reports they brought her were fascinating. The Merchants Guild is starting to panic, reported Agent Joe Miller, a former military officer who had volunteered for intelligence work. They're losing money, and their equipment is failing faster than they can replace it. Lisa studied the data on her screen. What about the council governments? Public support for the anti-human policies is dropping, Miller continued, especially among the younger generation. That Altarian named Yulvan has been giving speeches about the economic damage. And the military situation? High Chancellor Vextar is building up forces near our border. Not for invasion, but they're clearly worried about something. Lisa smiled grimly. They had good reason to be worried. In the asteroid belt beyond Mars, Dr. Sam Foster worked in a laboratory that would have been impossible to build just 3 years ago. The facility existed partially outside normal space, using technology that broke every rule of physics the galaxy thought it knew. The field generators are stable, he reported to his research team. We're maintaining a quantum displacement of 15% with no energy loss. His assistant, Dr. Maria Santos, checked the readings on her instruments. This is incredible, Sam. We're literally existing in 2 dimensions at once. And that's just the beginning, Sam said, his eyes bright with excitement. Once we scale this up to ship-sized applications, Dr. Santos understood immediately. Ships that could phase in and out of normal space would be nearly impossible to detect or attack. But more than that, they could travel through dimensions where the normal laws of physics didn't apply. How long until we have a working prototype? She asked. The engineering team thinks 6 months, maybe less if Dr. White's team can solve the power coupling problem. Meanwhile, the consequences of humanity's withdrawal were spreading across the galaxy in ways the Galactic Council had never expected. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, factories that relied on human-designed efficiency systems were producing 30% less output. The workers didn't understand why their machines were running slower, but the managers knew. We need those human software updates, Factory Supervisor Coleman told his board of directors. Without them, our systems are falling back to the old programming. Can't our own programmers figure it out? Asked the board chairman. They're trying, but human code is different from ours. They think in ways we don't understand. The same conversation was happening on worlds across the galaxy. Human innovations had been quietly integrated into everything from medical equipment to starship engines. Now that the flow of improvements had stopped, the cracks were starting to show. On Zephyr Prime, the Council world, High Chancellor Vexitar received a report that made his blood run cold. 3 of his patrol ships had experienced complete system failures while investigating the edge of human space. Define complete system failures, he demanded of Admiral Zulkar. Everything, Chancellor. Navigation, weapons, life support, communications. The ships went dead for exactly 17 minutes. Then all systems came back online. What did the crews report? Admiral Zulkar's forearms moved nervously. They said they detected impossible energy readings just before the failures, power signatures that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of physics. And you believe them? I ran the sensor logs through our best analysis computers. The readings are real, Chancellor. The humans are doing something that our science says is impossible. For the first time since the humans had walked away from the peace talks, Vextar felt afraid. A species didn't go from primitive to impossible in just 2 years. Unless they weren't as primitive as everyone had thought. Supreme Magistrate Colthune arrived at Vextar's office looking older than his 1,000 years. His golden eyes were dim with worry. "We have a problem," he said without greeting. "The human situation? Worse. I've been analyzing their behavior patterns from before they withdrew, comparing their technology development with other species at similar stages." Colthune activated a holographic display that showed technological advancement curves for different species. Most showed gradual, steady progress over thousands of years. The human curve was different. "Look at this," Colthune pointed to the human line. "Every other species follows predictable patterns. Slow development, occasional breakthroughs, gradual improvement over centuries. And the humans? Explosive growth. They've made more technological progress in 200 years than most species make in 2000, and the rate of advancement is increasing." Vextar stared at the graph. The human line rose so steeply it looked almost vertical. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we may have made the biggest mistake in galactic history. We treated them like children, but they're not children. They're something we've never seen before. A species that advanced too quickly. A species that's still advancing, and now they're doing it in complete isolation with no limits and no oversight." The two aliens stood in silence, staring at the impossible curve on the graph. Somewhere out there in the sealed-off human space, something was happening that would change the galaxy forever. "How long do we have?" Vextar asked quietly. "I don't know," Colthune replied, "but I don't think it will be long." On the hidden research station near Titan, Dr. Paul Gray watched as the first prototype ship powered up its revolutionary drive systems. The vessel existed in 3 dimensions simultaneously, its hull shimmering as it phased between normal space and somewhere else entirely. "All systems green," reported the test pilot, Captain Amy Chen. "Ready for the first jump test. Take us to Alpha Centauri and back," Dr. Gray ordered. "But stay in the alternate dimension. Don't let anyone detect you." The ship disappeared from normal space without even a flash of light. 30 seconds later, it reappeared. "Mission complete," Captain Chen reported. "Travel time to Alpha Centauri, 15 seconds. Dr. Gray smiled. The journey that normally took days had been completed in seconds, and nobody in the galaxy would have been able to detect the ship's passage. "How soon can we build a fleet?" he asked the engineering team. "With the new manufacturing systems, 6 months for the first 100 ships. "Make it 3 months, Dr. Gray said. "I have a feeling we're going to need them soon." The galaxy was about to discover that humanity had not been hiding. They had been evolving. Admiral Claire Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the impossible readings on her instruments. The ship existed in normal space, but also somewhere else entirely. Her crew worked at stations that phased in and out of reality, and nobody seemed bothered by it anymore. "All departments report ready, Admiral," said her first officer, Commander Tony Walsh. Claire nodded and touched the communication panel. "Engineering, are the new drive systems operational?" "Yes, ma'am," came the voice of Chief Engineer Bobby Clark. "We can jump to any point in the galaxy in under 10 minutes. The dimensional shields are holding steady at maximum power." 3 years had passed since humanity withdrew from galactic society. 3 years of the greatest technological revolution in human history. The ship Claire commanded would have been considered magic by the greatest minds of the Galactic Council. "Take us to the edge of our territory," she ordered. "Let's see if anyone is still watching." The ship moved through space without using conventional engines. Instead, it slid between dimensions, covering vast distances in seconds. Within minutes, they reached the border of human space where automated warning beacons kept alien ships away. "Contact on sensors," reported Lieutenant Karen Scott from the tactical station. "Zephyrian patrol ship, holding position just outside our boundary." "Let me guess," Claire said with a slight smile. "They're trying to scan us, but their instruments aren't working properly." "Exactly, Admiral. Their sensors are detecting impossible energy readings and their computers keep crashing." Claire had seen this before. Alien technology simply couldn't process what human ships had become. It was like showing a television to someone from the Stone Age. "Open a channel to them," she ordered. The main screen showed the bridge of the Zephyrian ship. The captain looked confused and slightly afraid. His forearms moved nervously as he tried to make sense of his instrument readings. "This is Captain Kelvar of the Zephyrian patrol vessel Brightwing," he said. "Identify yourself." "This is Admiral Claire Brooks of the United Earthship Defiance. You are approaching restricted human space." "Admiral?" Captain Kelvar's blue skin turned a darker shade. "Humans don't have admirals. Your species barely has a proper military." Claire's expression didn't change. "Captain, I'm going to give you some free advice. Turn your ship around and report to your superiors that humanity has changed. Tell them to stop sending patrol ships to our border." "Changed how?" Kelvar demanded. "You've been hiding in your space for 3 years. What could you possibly have accomplished?" Instead of answering, Claire nodded to her tactical officer. The UES Defiance shifted slightly, moving through dimensions in a way that made the alien ship's sensors scream warnings. On the Zephyrian bridge, alarms started blaring. Officers shouted reports of system failures and impossible readings. The human ship had somehow moved around them without crossing the space in between. "How did you do that?" Captain Kelvar whispered. "We learned," Claire said simply. "Good day, Captain." The UES Defiance vanished from normal space, leaving the Zephyrian patrol ship alone with malfunctioning instruments and a very worried crew. Meanwhile, on a secret base built inside an asteroid near Pluto, Captain Joe Miller briefed his team of special agents. The room was filled with humans and a few alien defectors who had chosen to join humanity after becoming disgusted with their own governments. "Intelligence reports show that the Galactic Council is starting to panic," Joe announced. "Their economy is failing, their technology is breaking down, and they're getting reports of impossible things happening near our space." One of his agents, a former Zephyrian scientist named Kexran, raised his hand. "My people are calling emergency sessions every week. The younger generation is demanding answers about why they rejected humanity." Kexran had defected 2 years ago after seeing how his government treated humans. He was brilliant, honest, and completely committed to helping humanity succeed. "What about military preparations?" asked Agent Helen Davis. "High Chancellor Vextar is building up forces," Joe replied. "Not for invasion yet, but they're clearly preparing for something. Intelligence suggests they're planning some kind of show of force." "Let them come," said Kexran quietly. "They have no idea what they would be facing." He was right. The alien defectors who had joined humanity were amazed by what they found. Technology that seemed to break the laws of physics. Ships that could exist in multiple dimensions. Weapons that could target individual atoms across solar systems. In the hidden research facility on Mars, Dr. Nina Walsh worked on her greatest achievement. The dimensional manipulation technology she had developed allowed humanity to exist partially outside normal space-time. It was the breakthrough that made everything else possible. "The field generators are operating at 200% of theoretical maximum," she reported to the Science Council meeting. "We're getting results that our own equations say should be impossible." "How is that possible?" asked Dr. Paul Gray. "We're not bound by the same physical laws when we operate between dimensions," Nina explained. "Energy works differently. Matter behaves in new ways. We're essentially rewriting physics as we go." Dr. Sam Foster leaned forward in his chair. "What are the practical applications?" "Everything," Nina said with excitement in her voice. "Faster than light travel without using conventional jump drives. Defensive shields that can withstand the energy output of stars. Weapons that ignore normal matter entirely and target the quantum structure of objects." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had not just advanced their technology, they had discovered entirely new ways that reality could work. "How long until we can equip the entire fleet?" asked General Kevin Ross, who had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces. "The manufacturing systems are already online," Dr. Walsh replied. "We can outfit 1,000 ships in 6 months." "Make it 3 months," General Ross said grimly. I have a feeling we're going to need them. His prediction proved correct. That same week, the Galactic Council's most advanced exploration vessel attempted to penetrate human space using experimental stealth technology. The ship was called the Deep Explorer, and it carried the best scientific equipment the Council could build. The mission lasted exactly 12 minutes. Captain Texerin commanded the Deep Explorer as it approached the edge of human space. His crew included the finest scientists and military officers from across the galaxy. They were confident that their stealth systems would allow them to see what humans were hiding. Entering human space now, reported the navigation officer. All stealth. Systems operational, confirmed the tactical officer. They shouldn't be able to detect us. Captain Texerin felt confident. The Deep Explorer used technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had shown before their withdrawal. There was no way a primitive species could detect them. He was wrong. The ship had been in human space for less than a minute when every system on board simply stopped working. Not damaged, not destroyed, just turned off. The crew found themselves floating in a dark ship with no power and no way to communicate. Then the lights came back on. But they were different lights. Softer, warmer, clearly not from their own systems. A voice spoke over the communication system in perfect Zephyrian. Welcome to human space, Captain Texerin. Please follow the navigation instructions that are now appearing on your screens. How do you know my name? Texerin demanded. We know everything about your ship, your crew, and your mission, the voice replied calmly. Please comply with our instructions. We have no desire to harm you. The Deep Explorer found itself being guided by invisible forces toward a massive structure that appeared on their sensors. The station was larger than anything in the Galactic database, and it was built using architectural principles that hurt to look at. Docking complete, announced the mysterious voice. Please prepare for boarding. The airlock opened and 3 figures entered the ship. They wore environmental suits that seemed to be made of light itself, and their faces were hidden behind helmets that reflected images of distant stars. I am Commander Ellen Price of the Terran Defense Force, said the leader. You are now in custody for violation of restricted space. Custody? Captain Texerin tried to maintain his dignity. We are representatives of the Galactic Council. You have no authority to detain us. In human space, we have complete authority, Commander Price replied. You will be treated as guests while we decide what to do with you. The Zephyrian crew was escorted through the station, and what they saw defied everything they thought they knew about reality. Corridors that were bigger inside than outside. Windows that showed views of multiple star systems simultaneously. Technology that existed in dimensions their science couldn't measure. This is impossible, whispered the ship's chief scientist. None of this should be able to exist. Welcome to the new reality, Commander Price said. Humanity has moved beyond the limitations that constrain other species. After 3 days of careful interrogation and examination, the Deep Explorer was released. The ship was escorted back to the border of human space, and Captain Texerin was given a simple message to deliver. Tell the Galactic Council that humanity has evolved, Commander Price said. Tell them that we are no longer the species they remember. High Chancellor Vextar stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. His forearms spread wide as he addressed the hundreds of representatives. The great chamber that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's expense now buzzed with fear and uncertainty. Fellow council members, Vextar began, his voice carrying across the vast space. We face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. The human situation has grown beyond our control. Supreme Magistrate Cole Thune activated a holographic display showing economic data from across the galaxy. Trade revenue is down 60%. Manufacturing output has dropped to dangerous levels. 17 member worlds are experiencing civil unrest as their populations demand answers. A Centaurian representative floated forward in his tank. My people are asking why we rejected a species that was clearly more advanced than we realized. The younger generation is calling for new leadership. The same is happening on my world, added an Altarian diplomat. Yulvan and his reform movement have gained massive support. They're demanding we apologize to humanity and beg for their return. Vextar's skin darkened with anger. Apologize? To a species with barely 2 centuries of spaceflight? We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. And in 10,000 years, have we ever seen anything like what the humans have become? The question came from Admiral Zulkar, the military commander who had reviewed the Deep Explorer's report. The chamber fell silent. The Admiral's words carried weight because everyone had read Captain Texerin's impossible account. Technology that exists in multiple dimensions, Admiral Zulkar continued. Ships that can travel anywhere in the galaxy in minutes. Defensive, systems that our best scientists say should not be possible. This is not the same species we rejected 3 years ago. Then we stop them before they become even more dangerous, Vextar declared. I am authorizing a preemptive military action against human space. The announcement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Several representatives stood up in protest, but Vextar raised his hands for silence. We cannot allow a single species to hold the entire galaxy hostage, he said. If we do nothing, they will eventually demand our surrender. Better to act now while we still have superior numbers. Admiral Zulkar looked uncomfortable. Chancellor, with respect, I've reviewed our military capabilities against what we know of human advances. This could be a catastrophic mistake. Are you refusing a direct order, Admiral? Zulkar straightened. No, Chancellor. I will carry out your orders. But I want it on record that I have serious concerns about this course of action. Noted, Vextar said coldly. Assemble the fleet. Every ship, every ally, every military asset we can gather. We end this before it gets worse. Within days, the largest military force in galactic history began gathering at the staging point near Proxima Centauri. 10,000 ships from dozens of species, representing the combined might of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The flagship was the massive dreadnought Galactic Dominion, a ship so large it could be seen from planetary surfaces. Beside it floated the Experimental Weapon Ship Council's Wrath, designed specifically to penetrate advanced defensive systems. Admiral Zulkar stood on the bridge of the Galactic Dominion and reviewed the fleet disposition. Despite his reservations, he was a professional soldier. If the Council wanted war with humanity, he would give them the best war he could manage. All ships report ready, Admiral, announced his tactical officer. Very well. Set course for the Sol system. Maximum speed. The enormous fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire galaxy. Meanwhile, on Luna Base, General Kevin Ross watched the approaching armada on his tactical displays. The Human Defense Network had detected the Council fleet the moment it began assembling, and every detail of their approach was being monitored. Impressive, commented Colonel Amy Chen, his chief tactical advisor. 10,000 ships. They're really serious about this. Numbers won't help them, said Admiral Kexran, the Zephyrian defector who now served as an advisor to human forces. They're still thinking in terms of conventional warfare. General Ross nodded. How long until they reach our border? 6 hours at their current speed, reported the sensor officer. Good. That gives us time to position our forces. Ross activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is General Ross. Take your assigned positions and prepare for combat. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them, just disable them. These are our neighbors, even if they don't act like it. The human fleet that moved to intercept the Council Armada was much smaller. Only 300 ships, but each one incorporated technology that seemed to ignore the fundamental laws of physics. Admiral Claire Brooks commanded the lead squadron from the bridge of the UES Defiance. Her ships existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that the Council's sensors couldn't detect. All ships report ready, announced Commander Tony Walsh. Excellent. Remember, everyone, we want to make a statement, not commit genocide. Disable their ships, but keep casualties to a minimum. Captain Joe Miller led a special operations group in ships that were completely invisible to conventional sensors. His mission was to capture key Council leaders alive, particularly Admiral Zulkar, who intelligence reports suggested was a reasonable leader forced into an unreasonable situation. The two fleets met at the edge of the Sol system, near the orbit of Neptune. From the perspective of the Council fleet, the humans had brought laughably few ships to the battle. Admiral Zulkar counted fewer than 300 human vessels against his 10,000. "Begin the attack," he ordered, though his heart was heavy. All ships engaged the human fleet. The Council fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Thousands of energy beams, particle cannons, and missile volleys filled space with deadly light. It was the most concentrated firepower ever assembled in galactic history. None of it touched the human ships. The human vessels simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They had shifted into dimensions where the attacks couldn't reach them, then reappeared in different positions. "What's happening?" Admiral Zulkar demanded of his tactical officer. "Sir, our weapons are passing through empty space. The human ships are there, but not there. Our sensors can see them, but our weapons can't hit them." Before Admiral Zulkar could respond, the human fleet began their counterattack. But it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of weapons fire, the human ships projected energy fields that simply turned off the Council vessels. Ship after ship found their power systems shut down, their weapons offline, their engines dead. Not destroyed, just switched off like someone had found the power button. "Engineering report," Admiral Zulkar shouted. "All systems offline, sir. Power, weapons, life support, everything. We're completely helpless." Across the fleet, the same thing was happening. 10,000 ships, the pride of galactic civilization, reduced to floating metal in less than 10 minutes. Not one human ship had been damaged. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." The main screen showed a human woman in a military uniform. Admiral Zulkar recognized her from intelligence reports as Admiral Claire Brooks. "Admiral Zulkar," she said calmly, "this is Admiral Brooks of the Terran Defense Force. Your fleet has been disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are safe, though your ships are currently powerless." "How?" was all Admiral Zulkar could manage to say. "We evolved," Admiral Brooks replied simply. "Your weapons and defenses are based on technology that we moved beyond 3 years ago. You brought conventional forces to fight an unconventional enemy. What do you want?" "We want you to deliver a message to the Galactic Council. Humanity is no longer interested in joining your organization as junior members. We have moved beyond the need for your approval or your protection." Admiral Zulkar felt a chill run through him. "And if we refuse?" "Then you'll remain here until your governments come to collect you. Your ships will be functional again in 24 hours, enough time for you to think about what you've seen here today." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Zulkar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked desperately to restore power to their systems, but nothing responded. Through the viewport, he could see the human fleet holding position, nearby. 300 ships that had just defeated 10,000 without firing a single shot. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the direction of Earth. Whatever technology they're using, it's getting stronger." Admiral Zulkar closed his eyes and tried to process what had just happened. The greatest military force in galactic history had been swatted aside like insects. Humanity hadn't just won the battle, they had demonstrated that the very concept of conventional warfare was obsolete. "Prepare a message for the Galactic Council," he said finally. "Tell them we have underestimated humanity. Tell them we need to negotiate immediately." "What kind of negotiations, sir?" Admiral Zulkar looked out at the human ships that seemed to shimmer in and out of reality. "Surrender negotiations," he said quietly. "Before they decide they don't need the rest of us at all." The great chamber on Kepler Prime had never been so quiet. Where once hundreds of alien representatives had gathered in confident authority, now only a few dozen remained. High Chancellor Vexitar was gone, removed from power by his own people, after the disaster at Salmern. Supreme Magistrate Kolthun faced trial for his role in provoking humanity. In their place sat younger leaders like Yulvan of the Altarians and Nixavel of the Centaurian Merchants Guild. The old order had collapsed in just 3 weeks, brought down by the complete failure of their greatest military force. "The council is dead," announced Yulvan to the remaining representatives. "We failed because we were arrogant. We treated a superior species like children, and now we must face the consequences." Admiral Zulkar stood before the assembly, no longer in his military uniform, but in the simple robes of a messenger. His report of the battle had shocked the galaxy and ended careers across dozens of worlds. "The human fleet could have destroyed us completely," he said. 10,000 ships disabled in 17 minutes. They showed us mercy when they had every right to show us none. "What do they want from us?" asked a Koryak representative. "That's what we need to find out," Yulvan replied. "I've received word that President Carter of Earth will address the galaxy tomorrow. We'll learn our fate then." On Earth, President Helen Carter stood in the same office where she had authorized humanity's withdrawal 3 years earlier. Through her window, she could see the lights of a city that had been transformed by technologies that seemed like magic, even to those who had built them. "Are you ready for this?" asked General Kevin Ross. "As ready as anyone can be for remaking galactic civilization," Helen replied. "Have our new allies confirmed their participation?" "Yes, ma'am. Representatives from 47 worlds are requesting to join the new assembly. Even some former council species want to start fresh." Helen nodded. The speech she was about to give would reshape the galaxy's future, but unlike the old council's proclamations from positions of assumed superiority, this would be an invitation to equals. The next morning, every screen across the galaxy carried the same signal. President Helen Carter appeared, speaking from the rebuilt chambers of what had once been the Galactic Council building. But the architecture had changed. Instead of elevated seats looking down on a central platform, circular tiers placed everyone at the same level. "Citizens of the galaxy," Helen began. 3 years ago, humanity was offered a choice: join galactic civilization as servants or remain alone. We chose a third option. We chose to become something new. The camera pulled back to show the chamber filled with representatives from dozens of species. But these weren't the same arrogant officials who had ruled for millennia. These were younger voices, progressive thinkers, beings who had watched the old system fail and wanted something better. "Today we established the Galactic Assembly," Helen continued. "Not a council of masters ruling over subjects, but a gathering of equals working toward shared goals." In the audience, Admiral Zulkar sat beside Captain Ryan Torres, the merchant, who had been turned away from human space years earlier. Next to them sat Dr. Kexran, the Zephyrian scientist who had defected to humanity and now served as an ambassador between species. "The old system was based on age and assumed superiority," Helen said. "The new assembly will be based on contribution and cooperation. Every member species will have an equal voice, regardless of how long they've been traveling between stars." A young Altarian in the audience raised her hand. Helen recognized her as Texvar, the daughter of the disgraced former chancellor. "President Carter," Texvar asked, "what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply become the new rulers? Your technology is clearly superior to ours." Helen smiled. "Because we learned something during our 3 years of isolation. True, strength doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from lifting others up to stand beside you." She gestured to a section of the chamber where human scientists sat next to their alien colleagues. "Dr. Paul Gray will now explain how humanity plans to share our technological advances." Dr. Gray stood up, the same man who had worked in secret facilities to develop humanity's revolutionary technology. "We're opening our research stations to scientists from every species, not as gifts from superiors to inferiors, but as contributions to our collective advancement." The announcement sent murmurs of excitement through the chamber. Access to human technology could transform every civilization in the galaxy. "But there are conditions," Dr. Gray continued. "The technology must be used for peaceful purposes. No species can use our advances to dominate others. And everyone who benefits must contribute their own knowledge to the collective effort." Ambassador Kate Morrison, the same woman who had walked away from peace talks 3 years earlier, now stepped forward as the Secretary General of the new assembly. "The first meeting of the Galactic Assembly will convene next month," she announced. "Every species that commits to the principles of equality and cooperation is welcome to join." In the merchant sector of the chamber, Captain Ryan Torres turned to his old friend Zixtel. Hard to believe we went from being shut out of human space to being invited to help run the galaxy. Zixtel's tentacles moved in what humans had learned was a gesture of amazement. The humans could have conquered us all. Instead, they're making us partners. The transformation wasn't immediate or easy. Some species, particularly the older and more traditional ones, struggled to accept the new reality. But as months passed and the benefits became clear, resistance faded. The research stations that had once been humanity's greatest secrets became centers of learning where the galaxy's brightest minds worked together. Dr. Lisa White, who had once stood in humiliation before the old council, now led teams of scientists from dozens of species in pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Captain Joe Miller, former intelligence operative, now commanded mixed crews of humans and aliens on exploration missions to uncharted regions of the galaxy. The ships they flew used technology that made the old council fleet look primitive, but they were used for discovery, not conquest. On New Geneva Station, now reopened and busier than ever, Captain Ryan Torres docked his ship after a successful trading mission. His cargo holds were full of goods from the human colonies, but also innovations from the new research partnerships. The isolationist policies were over, replaced by cooperation that benefited everyone. Captain Torres called a familiar voice. He turned to see Commander Ellen Price, the same human officer who had once detained the Council's exploration vessel. Commander Price, Ryan replied with a smile. How are the new patrol duties? Much more pleasant than the old ones, Ellen said. We're escorting research vessels instead of turning away visitors. It's nice to be building bridges instead of walls. The greatest change came in the education systems. On Mars, the Terran Academy had expanded to include students from across the galaxy. Human children learned alongside young Zephyrians, Altarians, and Centaurians. The prejudices that had divided the galaxy for millennia were being erased one generation at a time. Dr. Nina Walsh, whose dimensional manipulation technology had made humanity's transformation possible, now taught advanced physics to a classroom filled with eager students from dozens of worlds. The same breakthroughs that had once been humanity's greatest military secrets were now being shared freely with anyone curious enough to learn. 5 years after humanity's withdrawal from the old peace talks, Admiral Claire Brooks stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth. Through the transparent walls, she could see ships from across the galaxy coming and going in peaceful commerce and cooperation. Any regrets about how things turned out? Asked her old friend, General Kevin Ross. Claire shook her head. The old council wanted us to surrender our identity to join their club. Instead, we changed our identity and built a better club. Below them, the blue planet that had once been dismissed as the home of primitive upstarts now served as the diplomatic center of galactic civilization. But Earth was no longer the sole seat of power. The assembly met on rotating worlds, ensuring that no single species dominated the others. Look at that. General Ross pointed to a mixed crew of humans and aliens working together to repair a damaged freighter. 5 years ago, they thought we were barely capable of spaceflight. Now we're all working as equals. The memorial to the old Galactic Council stood in the center of the assembly building, a simple stone monument with words that had become the unofficial motto of the new galaxy. Here lies the reminder that true strength comes not from domination, but from the courage to stand alone until others learn to stand as equals. Ambassador Kate Morrison often paused at the memorial during her daily walks through the assembly complex. The inscription reminded her of the long journey from that humiliating day on Kepler Prime to this moment of galactic cooperation. Hard to believe it all started with them laughing at us, said a voice behind her. Kate turned to see Texavar, now serving as the Zephyrian representative to the assembly. The young alien had become one of humanity's strongest allies and a leader in the reform movement that had swept across the galaxy.